So I'm building a new computer, and I've been doing unboxing videos for all my components. And today, we're talking about the motherboard. The one I'm including in this build is the ROG Strix Z690-E gaming Wi-Fi. Originally, it came out in 2022, and it's a part of the newer gen of motherboards that support Intel's latest LGA 1700 chipset. With that being said, we all know how quickly tech moves, and I'm aware that there's already a new generation of this series called Z790s. Even so, this by no means makes this obsolete. But let me show you why you may or may not even want to pay the extra for the Z790. In case you're new here, we drop tech videos weekly, so if you're a geek, subscribe to Zeke or just hit that like button. Now without further ado, the ROG Strix Z690-E gaming Wi-Fi motherboard. This is an Intel 12th and 13th gen CPU compatible ATX size DDR5 gaming motherboard by ROG or Asus. Although those who do not game can still find plenty of value in this piece of tech. But I will note, this is not a budget build motherboard, but the idea is to at least be able to put some of the money saved into components that matter. Okay, for the processor, the Z690E can handle up to Intel's latest Raptor Lake 13th gen CPUs with Turbo Boost Max 3.0 technology. This is definitely a board that's gonna take some monetary investment. I'm updating from quite a few generations back, so I'm excited for the boost. But it doesn't stop there. RAM, you get DDR5 and DDR5 only compatibility, which means you're likely gonna need to invest in a new ecosystem when it comes to memory. But if you're looking at a product like this though, I think that's all part of the fun. With that said, you can throw in a max of 128 gigabytes DDR5 6400, and you're good to go if you want to run XMP, which you should in almost all cases run XMP, but that's another story. In terms of built-in graphics, you get a DisplayPort 1.4 that can transfer 8K 60Hz and an HDMI 2.1 suitable for 4K 60Hz. Also included on the I/O is a ton of USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 6 Type A and 2 Type Cs, and you even get 4 more USB 2.0s, and you get more inside. So connectivity will not be a problem. And you get the trusty BIOS reset button on the outside of the computer, which is a very convenient touch versus the common methods we're all used to. Taking it around to the front of the board, you'll notice just how beautiful this thing looks and what's all going on. Well, let's talk about expansion. So in this motherboard, you get one PCIe 5 slot with 16 lanes, 3 M.2 slots underneath the futuristic ass heatsink. There's actually 5 total if you're including the 2 on the bundled ROG Hyper 2.0 expansion. I also forgot to mention that there's a PCIe quick release that'll save some headache when it comes to removing graphics cards, man. There is an interesting caveat about this same Gen 5 slot too, by the way, but I'll talk about that in a moment. And when it comes to standard SATA drives, you got 6 of them to work with. Now, for those wondering why it's called gaming Wi-Fi, well, it's because it's strapped with onboard Intel Wi-Fi 6E and Intel 2.5 gigabyte Ethernet with Asus LAN, all in order to allow you to get extremely reliable and quick internet for gaming and streaming, as long as your provider plan isn't the bottleneck. It's not necessarily built right in though. You're gonna want to use this antenna, or else you're gonna feel like you're running dial-up and just forget about Bluetooth because it's just not gonna work reliably. Don't ask how I know, just know I know. There are a ton of fan headers on this motherboard. You got a thermal sensor, bunch of RGB headers, and an LCD for error codes, which is very, very helpful. So you do get audio for front I/O PC cases that seems to be decent, but personally, I never use it as opposed to my external USB audio interface. As for the rest of what's in the box, you get some zip ties, SATA cables, a GPU support bracket, an ROG tag or keychain I believe, and an install CD. Kinda interesting that they still include these physically. Your manual, and some holographic stickers in true gamer fashion. Now by now you probably wouldn't associate this motherboard with the word minimal, but there is actually a minimal amount of RGB on the front choke heatsink cover. Though if you have RGB RAM, you can sync it and your fans, all to be controlled by the same program called Armory Crate. It's personally not my favorite and doesn't give you a whole lot of customization, but if you want to set it and forget it, it's fine. But if you choose to opt out of some of the bloatware, you might find the experience a little bit broken. The majority of us are gonna just use the program that our fans come with anyway, so. Now, I'm not gonna go too deep into the BIOS in this video, but it's very straightforward and user-friendly, even for first-timers. But come on guys, still use caution fiddling around in them. But the first thing you're gonna wanna do is update your BIOS. And if you haven't heard about the heat concerns for the 13th gen Intel processors, mainly the i9 1300K, you will no doubt experience high temperatures even with high-end AIOs. That's due to one BIOS setting that can be fixed, and I'm gonna show you just how to do that. All you have to do is click this and select the option that isn't gonna push it to its absolute limits. Once I changed this setting, my temperatures went down drastically. There's still a lot more that you could probably fiddle with in here to, you know, still boost it, but that's the easiest solution to just get going right away, especially if you don't want to be in there tinkering around too much. Turning on XMP for your DDR5 RAM is also very easy. Just change the setting to on or XMP1 profile, and you're pretty much going to be getting your advertised speeds. Just try to make sure you max out your RAM with only 2 sticks, bro, because if you start trying to bundle in 4 sticks of RAM or 2 separate packs of RAM, you're gonna see some issues, man. At least until they figure it all out. You'll thank me later. I'm stuck with some extra RAM and this is not cheap. Maybe I'll do a giveaway or something. Let me know in the comments. So we talked a little bit about the pros, how it's a great option for those reaching for the Intel Raptor Lake processors and next-gen memory. You also get a ton of AI features allowing you to somewhat safely overclock, AI cool with fan curves, and even some noise canceling too. To add on to that, you get high-performance gaming networking with onboard Wi-Fi 6E and Intel 2.5 GB Ethernet. You got so many ports on the I/O, and I use a ton of USB devices and still haven't filled them up yet. But another HDMI wouldn't hurt. Speaking of which, let me talk about a little bit of the cons or some of the things that I didn't like as much. The heat sinks on this motherboard are huge and could definitely cause some interference with bigger cooling options. This is definitely leaning toward users who prefer an AIO solution. So the ROG SSD heat sinks look really cool, but if your SSD comes with one already, you're gonna wanna go without it and prioritize the proprietary one. So another con is that it's just not extremely future-proof. The memory caps off at 6400 megahertz. We can already start to see speeds begin to skyrocket with DDR5. And once the new generation of CPUs drop, you're a little stuck. I will say this though, if you're one of the guys who are chasing the latest and greatest, this is gonna hold you off for at least a couple years for the average user, whether that's for gaming or productivity, media, etc. I would not sweat it too much, bro. You're gonna be straight. Now about that PCIe slot quirk that I mentioned. If you use the northmost SSD slot, it will actually take PCIe lanes from your PCIe 5 graphics card port, changing it from 16 to 8 mode. That's a pretty decent cut in performance potential. Now there are other M.2 location options that will not affect it, so it's still preventable. But I would definitely want to know about something like this before spending this kind of money. See, I'm sure that a lot of people might get caught on the fact that this might not be 100% future-proofed. But let's be honest, nothing in PC building truly is. You can't build PCs based on FOMO or fear of missing out. You really want to build based on your needs and stick to that, bro. Well, of course, and your budget as well. In my opinion, you're still miles ahead of that ceiling, considering you have PCIe 5.0 and 4.0, DDR5, and of course access to Intel's Raptor Lake processors. The majority of people are not going to need any more than this for quite a long time. But if you do want Z790s though, there are Z790s that only slightly outclass this for similar prices, and better ones that are way more expensive. My word would be to weigh out your options and do some comparisons for yourself. If you look at the exact Z790 upgrade of this ROG Strix motherboard, the only upgrade that I could visually see is a speed limit increase on the RAM from 6400 to 7800. So do with that as you will. But coming from me, bro, save the money on the 790. This will get you all the same places until the next generation of motherboards. Thanks for watching, and if you like tech videos, please consider subscribing. I have a complete build of my current in-game PC video coming real soon. Also, leave me a comment below which motherboard you think is the absolute best out of all of them and why. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.